Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America on the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network. Great to have you with us on the program tonight. As mentioned, our guest on the show, Gary and Sharon Worrell, authors of the book Sexual Addiction, One Couple's Journey to Discover the Strategies for Healing. Their website is strategiesforhealing.com. We'll give that information and where you can buy the book throughout the interview. Gary, Sharon, welcome to the program. Great to have you with us.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you very much.
You know, this is such an important topic, and time is going to go by very quickly, and I will talk about the personal journey that the two of you went through in a couple of seconds. Let's basically start, Gary, and I'll ask you this. Let's define sexual addiction, because I think people will be surprised exactly what the definition is.
Sexual addiction is the behavior that a person is able to actually seek out other sources of not only connecting with people, but connecting sexually, intimately, maybe verbally, or it also can be through the internet or through text or reading materials, cyber connections, text, anything that is able to actually gratify the sexual urges within either male or female.
Sharon, in the book, Sexual Addiction, One Couple's Journey to Discover the Strategies for Healing, you also talk about sexual anorexia. That's a term I was not familiar with. Exactly what is that?
Well, sexual anorexia is when a person withholds sexual intimacy from their partner because of the fantasy that's going on in their head. If they are, Gary was talking about sexual addiction being it's a disconnect, and they are connected to something totally different. And they don't even really want to be intimate or sexual with their primary partner. So sexual anorexia is when you withhold sexual intimacy from your primary partner.
You know, when you mention statistics, and you've got some in the book, and it's really startling. I guess you could say pornography now is the drug of choice. And I know, Gary, one stat that's alarming: almost half of families, 47%, report that pornography is a problem in their home.
Well, not only is it a problem, but it's a growing problem.
Yeah.
It's not going to get worse. It's
not going to get better.
It's not going to get better. It's getting actually younger and younger are the participants.
And I know, Sharon, you mentioned, and this is another, all these statistics, I'm reading these, and it's like, these are incredible. 70% of surveyed Christians admitted to struggling with pornography daily, and that number surprised me as well.
I know, it's an amazing amount, and I think that it's hitting families in every level of society.
And we're all exposed to it, and exposed in so many ways. It used to be you had to make a conscious choice to go to the internet and dial up, and now, but you can even find sites by the telephone. It's basically.
That's true, and the sad part is it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, any format you want it.
Yes.
The book is Sexual Addiction, One Couple's Journey to Discover the Strategies for Healing. Gary Worrell is a professional counselor, sex addiction therapist with a private practice in Denver. Sharon Worrell is a board-certified biblical counselor, works with women whose partners are sexual addicts through groups and individual counseling. The book is available at Amazon at their website, strategiesforhealing.com. You can buy a hard copy of the book. You can get a Kindle version. You can download an ebook. Let's talk about the actual experience that led both of you into this. And there's so much in the book, and I'm going to highly recommend this. But let's start with, Gary, that what's called the night of discovery. This is the phone call you make after you've been arrested for solicitation. Talk a little bit about that phone call from your perspective.
Well, you know, when a person's in jail, you get one phone call. That is not a rumor. It actually is true. And unfortunately, I had to determine who am I going to call. I didn't have any contacts with the legal community. I didn't have any contacts that could give me advice. So the best person, the only person I could call was my wife. You can imagine the shock when she saw coming across the caller ID that she was getting a call from the Denver Municipal Jail.
And Sharon, you say in the book that it was almost when you got that phone call like someone you loved had died. That had that
Absolutely.
much of an impact on you.
Yeah, it was just shocking. I mean, we were in the church, we were upright in the community. My husband had a corporate job. There just was so much that was going on, and I would never in a million years have ever guessed that this could ever have happened.
And when he's explaining to you why he is being incarcerated, You really, at that point, you really wanted to believe him.
I did, because you know what? I didn't want to believe the alternative. I didn't want to believe that it wasn't a mistake, that it had really happened.
And Gary, in your mind, you're trying to, and you talk in great detail about, especially as you're leaving after you've made bail and Sharon is waiting for you, you really want to portray yourself as the victim. This really was all a mistake, and you were the victim rather than someone who was actually attempting to commit a crime.
Yet to realize the person that I was in this addictive reality for probably close to, at least 35 years. And it was hard for me to come to the realization that actually I did something wrong because I've been living it so long.
Is that typical as you talk with people who have sexual addiction, that it's really a life of lies that they put together?
Oh, yes. I had a life of lies that was so thick that I couldn't tell the difference between the truth and the lie.
And Gary was actually the most believable liar. He sprinkled all of the truth in with all of the deception, and so I never knew which end was up. I just always knew that my intuition told me that something was wrong, but I didn't know, I didn't have any proof that there was something wrong, so I just kind of let it slide.
Well, that's interesting because you do talk about that your intuition is saying, okay, I've really sensed something has been wrong. Now it starts to make some sense. As people are watching their partners out there, possibly battling with this, what are some of the warning signs? What were some of the things that made you uncomfortable that you witnessed in Gary's behavior?
Well, I think there were a lot of odd behaviors. Gary was actually home for dinner every night, and he was actually a family man, and he actually lived the duality in a pretty perfect way. He but he would go away on business trips, and some of his shirts wouldn't come home, and he would give me excuses for that, or he would be out. If he went someplace to go bowling with a friend, he wouldn't come home until the middle of the night, and he would say the car broke down and that kind of thing. So, I mean, there were just odd behaviors and things that didn't add up, little things here and there that were just made me a little suspicious, but I didn't know what to do with that.
You have to realize, Rick, that the process of sexual addiction is a process of sort of morphing our lives around the lie of not only the addiction, but also the lie of living in isolation. And that isolation is probably one of the first signs that a person should start to recognize that, and maybe there's a problem.
Well, let's talk about some of your behavior. And, like we talked before, it's available. You can go to pornographic websites all the time. It's freely available 24 hours a day. When do you think, or was there a point where you really felt you crossed the line, that people could relate to, that, wow, if I need to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go check the internet, there's something wrong here?
Well, that's a good sign. However, most people aren't so in tune. They might just think, oh, they're just getting up to go to the bathroom or whatever.
Right.
But what happens when you get up to go to the bathroom and you've gone to the bathroom for 3 hours?
Yes. You're listening to This Week in America, our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Sexual Addiction, One Couple's Journey to Discover the Strategies for Healing. That's the book we're talking about. The co-authors, Gary and Sharon Worrell, are our guest on the program. The book is Sexual Addiction, One Couple's Journey to Discover the Strategies for Healing. The website is strategiesforhealing.com. Book's available at the website of Amazon. You can go to their website and order the book as well. And rapidly running out of time, as I knew we were going to. I know, Gary, at one point you said, knowledge informs, but revelation transforms. And I explained what that means, because that I thought was pretty good.
Well, you have to realize, in the process of our life, everybody feels that knowledge is power. Knowledge is only powerful if it means or changes your life. And that's the knowledge will inform you. Yeah, I can be knowledgeable about sexual addiction, and I could read all the books. However, if it doesn't become real, a revelation, what I call an aha moment to me, it's totally pointless. When it becomes a revelation and an aha moment, then it transforms, and then I change because it has a personal impact.
Is it possible to get through this alone, or does it really take a supportive spouse to go through the recovery process with you?
I would have to say that people really can't get through it alone. It's, self-directed recovery is really never effective, or rarely effective anyway. And it's not that somebody can't get through it alone, but it's rarely so that they can, because there's so much denial. There's so much walls that have been built up that really you need somebody else who can facilitate that process, who is objective and looking from the outside in. And I don't think that men actually would get well if they didn't have a supportive spouse, because there wouldn't be any reason to get well. They just walk away and do it all over again in another relationship.
It's interesting going back to the beginning, and Gary's, when he first heard the counselor say sexual addiction, it's like, that's not me. I'm not addicted to sex. And Sharon, your response was, and I think this may be typical, you find out your husband has a sexual addiction and you're thinking he doesn't even like sex. Is that fairly common in a relationship?
It is a lot. It is very pervasive in sexual addiction because the fantasy takes over in the addict's head, and they withdraw emotionally and sexually from that intimacy with their primary partners. And so then it's a vicious cycle. Women feel like they're not enough. They feel like it's all about them, but it's not all about them.
Gary, you've said that sexual addiction just doesn't go away. And when I'm reading the book, Sexual Addiction, I'm amazed at how long it takes. I think what, Sharon, you went through 3 years of co-therapy with Gary. Then Gary, you were in there a little bit longer. It really takes some dedication and some time to work through this.
Well, it takes time, it takes commitment, and I guess the key word, even beyond time and commitment, is consistency. You have to consistently work at it, and when you consistently work at it, you are able to see your life change, because you're changing your thoughts, you're changing your behaviors, you're changing your life, you're changing everything.
And you're trying to get back to that place of what's healthy, because you've gone beyond the boundaries. You've gone beyond what's healthy. And so you have to actually reframe it and bring it back to a place of finding a healthy foundation to build on again.
How do you deal with children during this process?
Well, a lot of people deal with children in many different ways. When we were in recovery, people would not tell their kids what they were dealing with, and they didn't know anything about it. And it was like the elephant in the living room, where everybody would just be working around whatever the recovery process was for the couple. But honestly, with our son, he was an adolescent when we began our recovery, when all this came to light, and he knew about it from the beginning. So we actually allowed him to ask his questions. We didn't tell him things. We would let him ask the questions of what he wanted to know, and then we would give him those answers appropriate to his age.
In the book, Sexual Addiction, Sharon, someone says to you, at some point in your life, you'll get down on your knees and thank God that Gary was caught. How long did it take to reach that point that, okay, I'm glad it's come out now, we can make this work together?
Well, I think it was a few years down the road. Before I could actually really honestly say I was thankful that all of this happened, because it was actually a couple years. The jury was still out, so to speak, in a couple of years' time, to really figure out if this was going to, if our marriage was going to be able to be restored, if this was actually Gary was actually going to overcome his behaviors, and if we could be well.
Gary, we got just a couple minutes left in the program. So many people go, okay, I can look at those sites and not look at those sites. It's no big deal. It's not hurting anybody. What should people do if they really feel maybe I am to the point where I should talk with somebody?
Well, the first thing is to realize, hey, I need to acknowledge there's a possible problem. There's something going on that I'm not maybe fully able to control. It's got a hold of my life in such a way that I can't exactly manage all the things that are going on. And also I'm having a hard time keeping it so hidden, or keeping it so out of the public or the family's eye. Mm-hmm. That first they have to acknowledge it, and then they have to be willing to do something about it. They have to find someone. Now, it can't just be a regular counselor. It needs to be someone that understands sexual
Right.
addiction and how it works.
And during this whole process, if someone would have said to you before you were arrested that, Gary, you've got a problem with this, you probably would have denied that and thought, no, I have it under control.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a typical male. This is a rite of process. I've been going through this for decades, and why should I have to, worry about it? It's not harming anybody. At least that's my lie, I believed.
Yeah.
Got about 30 seconds left in the program. Sharon, I'll close with this. One of the statistics I had was almost 56% of teenagers have reported visiting a sexually explicit website. That's got to be frightening that at that age, it's so readily available to them.
You know what? It's alarming what our kids are getting into. And the next generation of people are going to be so disconnected that they're not going to be able to be relational because of it. And that's the most alarming part of all of it.
Very good way to close the program. The information in the book, it's a great story. It walks you all the way through the process. Sexual Addiction, One Couple's Journey to Discover the Strategies for Healing. The website is strategiesforhealing.com. You can go to that website. You can order various versions of the book, Kindle. You can download. You can get a hard copy of the book, the actual print version, or you can do the same by going to Amazon. Gary and Sharon Worrell have been our guest on the program tonight. Thank you so much for sharing your story and being with us on the program.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you very much, Rick.
You're welcome. And of course, more information you can link on to their website at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. You're listening to This Week in America on the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network.